Welcome back to the Foundations of Learning podcast. I'm your host, Shaylee Flint. Today, we are going to be reviewing an article about how many American parents actually have no idea how their kids are doing in school. This article was honestly mind-boggling to me. As an educator, I kind of knew that parents didn't have a good handle on where their children were academically, and I do not blame them whatsoever, because I think it's really hard. Like, we don't give them a ton of information as far as like, hey, this is what they need to be able to do in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So they're kind of waiting for what teacher is going to say. Now, part that gets a little crazy in this is that teachers, or at least the information that schools and teachers are providing parents, is actually not helping them to even understand whether or not their child's doing well, and they may think that they're doing well, and they are not.
Welcome to the Foundations of Learning podcast. I hope to inspire you to actively participate in your child's learning journey, fostering a love for knowledge and nurturing the skills necessary for success in a rapidly changing world.
Help your child become a confident reader with letters and sounds. This structured curriculum includes lesson plans, games, and multisensory activities to make learning letters fun and effective. Get started today at k3homeschoolfoundations.com or check out the link down below. Let's get into this article. Many American parents would be shocked to know where their kids were actually achieving. Nationally, 90% of parents think that their children are reading and doing math at or above grade level. In fact, 26% of 8th graders are proficient or above in math. 31% are proficient or above in English, according to Learning Heroes. Now, if you look at the NAEP data on that, it's a little bit higher. It's like 35% or something like that. It's still sad that only we'll say 26 to 35%, okay, we're just going to kind of put it in that range, are actually proficient in math and reading. I'm going to dive into why the heck do parents not know? Because I know that they're not just being lazy or not listening or not looking at report cards. Obviously, I know that parents are responsible and they are trying to make sure that their children are succeeding and being the best that they can be. Let's look at what's going on here. So they said that 80% of the parents say that they are confident that they understand how their child is achieving academically, and more than 3/4 say that they feel that their kids are actually prepared to enter and succeed at college and in the workplace. If you're a parent, you're like, yeah, my child is on track. Now, what information, to just kind of set this up, are you getting from the teachers? Like, what is that information they're providing to you that makes you think that your child is on track? Like, how do you actually know? If you think that your child is on track, okay, 80 to 90% of parents are like, yes, I am confident. I know what my child is doing academically. When only 35% of 8th graders are actually on grade level, that is a big discrepancy. And if you don't know as a parent that your child is behind, are you going to set out to get them extra help? Probably not, because you think that they're on track. Why the heck would you give them extra help if you think that they're on track? And I think that this is the problem and the disconnect. And I think that this is one of the blessings from 2020 and the whole COVID thing, was that parents actually kind of got to see how their kids were doing and like how the teacher was teaching and like all of these things. And I think it kind of opened the eyes of a lot of parents. Hold on, this is not matching what I thought was happening or where I thought my child was at. And now I'm like seeing the difference, and oh my goodness, is my child behind? So I do think that that was one blessing. Let's get a little bit more into detail here. So teachers are actually a bit more clear-eyed about parents' insights into their kids' attainment levels. 58%, so this is teachers, 58% of them say most or all parents have a clear understanding of how their child is achieving academically. That's a lot of parents who do not know where their child is performing. So even with teachers are like, yeah, I'd probably say about 58% of my parents in my class know where their children are at. Still not great. Like, so only like a little over half of you are understanding. That's still not good. I mean, it's a lot of parents that really don't know where their child's at academically. Where are we getting our information? How are we determining whether or not parents know what their child's learning? To have a base here on what we're using. So the first is report cards. That's what parents are using to understand whether their child is academically on grade level or not. And that is what teachers are providing or schools are providing to the parents. Most parents, I would say, think that these report cards are what the academics are. Now, I have been in multiple districts now via student teaching, just my own career in teaching, and I have seen the drastic differences in report cards for every single district. So every single district is going to be very different in what they put on the report cards. So that is something that you also need to understand as a parent, is that no matter what I even say about like, oh, this is what's going to be on a report card, it's going to be so different everywhere. Like it's not the same everywhere. And then what your teacher provides to you as far as information goes on the report card is going to be so different. So a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. Some report cards will have not only achievement of academic skills, but they will also put in attendance, effort, homework completion, and behavior, which if I'm being honest, like all of that should be completely different. Like attendance, effort, homework completion, and behavior, that should be like its own report card. Like we should not be putting those skills in to make a lump sum grade with academic achievement. Like if schools are doing that, which I have seen schools do that, I think that's crazy. Like those are two separate things. What skills do they have and are they basically responsible? For example, a second grader might be super responsible, right? They pay attention in class. They raise their hand. They get their work done. They do their homework. They're on time. They don't miss a lot of school. They put in a lot of effort, like all of these things, right? And we're putting that in there. And then we have the skills, and maybe based on the way that everything is weighted, all of these other things, which is behavior, attendance, effort, homework, all of that is going to kind of outbalance what the skills are, right? So it's like, oh, he's doing amazing in school. And then you look at his skills and it's like, oh, wait, he's way below grade level. But because of the way that the grade is calculated, it looks like he's doing amazing. Often, your kid could be coming home and saying like, he's getting all 4s or he's getting all A's or he's getting all whatever. However they do it, a lot of the time in the elementary schools, what I've noticed is we do numbers, not letter grades. He could be coming home and you could be like, he's doing fantastic, right? Might not be the case. He might actually be below grade level in his skills. And so for an example, in New York City, 83% of parents report that their kids got A's or B's on their report cards. In reality, only 26% are performing at grade level. The second reason that parents might be in the dark that they list is the child's actual performance. So they are saying that teachers are neither trained nor given ample time to have honest conversations with the parents. So they rightly fear that they will be blamed, not believed, or not supported by the principals if they do tell parents exactly where their children are performing. Teachers. This one rubbed me the wrong way because I get it. I really, truly do. Like your job as an educator is to make sure that these children are succeeding academically. So I totally get where you're coming from. It like makes you feel like a complete failure. And sometimes, yeah, maybe you just aren't doing the best that you could be doing. Maybe you think you're doing the best you could be doing, but maybe you're using ineffective strategies and you don't know they're ineffective because you're told to teach the curriculum to fidelity. Right? Did you know that over 60% of US students fall below grade level in reading, and it often starts in the grades kindergarten through second grade? Don't let your child become a statistic. My Science of Reading Simplified course gives you a step-by-step tool to teach phonics, vocabulary, writing, and reading comprehension. If you want to equip your child to succeed, start today. Visit k3homeschoolfoundations.com or check out the link down below to get started. As an educator, I do understand there are so many just variables that sometimes it can be like, I am doing everything I can possibly do, and I don't understand why these kids are still falling behind. Like, I totally get that. And I do understand that it can be so scary. Like parent-teacher conferences, if you are a parent and you're not an educator, I just want you to know that educators, a lot of the time, are so terrified to do parent-teacher conferences because of what they just noted. Like, I'm going to be blamed or not believed or not supported. And I truly am doing everything I can for your child. And I seriously love them dearly and want them to succeed. So I know as an educator, like that can be so terrifying to have to tell a parent your child is behind. However, if you tell parents this information, it allows them to be proactive. And sometimes that means that, hey, maybe they cannot get what they need here at school and you might need to look for outside help. And that is okay. You as an educator have a lot on your plate. You have a lot of students with differing abilities, differing needs, and it's just honestly, quite honestly, almost an impossible task to make sure that every single one of those students are going to be at grade level by the end of the year, because everyone is starting at so many different places and you are one human. Yes, you may have some aids and you do small groups and that helps with growth, and then you have SPED and maybe you get them qualified for SPED, which don't get me started on how long it freaking takes to get a kid qualified for SPED. But if you can be honest with parents and tell them where their children are at academically, everybody wins. I know that you might have a parent that gets totally upset with you and they're like, you're not doing your job. And you know what? I get that scary. And I get a lot of people are like, I don't want to lose my job. I'm going to get fired. My principal's going to be mad. He's not going to support me, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, even if that parent is upset, I have to assume that they are at least glad that you were honest with them. And in my experience as an educator, I have never once not told a parent, your child is behind. Your child is not on grade level here, and these are the skills that they are not doing well on. Here are some things you can do at home. I always come very prepared if I am going to tell a parent, this is where your child's at. Also, if they are behind, I would let them know before parent-teacher conferences. Give them a phone call. Quick little phone call. Hey, I just want to make you aware that your child is behind. These are the skills that they are lacking in, and we need to get more support. I'm doing everything I can, but if you can do X, Y, and Z at home, that could be super helpful to try to get them caught up. That way, by the time you get to parent-teacher conferences, it's not this like scary thing that like, okay, now I like have to burden them with this, conversation, and we haven't talked since the first day of school or whatever, right? So really, and I know that that's asking a lot as well because you have so many kids and there's a lot behind, unfortunately. But I know that if you have a relationship, you start that relationship with them and like early on, let them know, hey, at the very beginning of the year, look, we did testing. This is where your child's at, and we need to be proactive. And most of the time, parents are going to be proactive. They're going to help. Some parents don't, and that's their thing. But a lot of parents are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me know. Because a lot of them just don't know. They don't even know what they have to be able to do. And so to them, they're like, my child's doing great. Like they can read this and read that. And you're like, well, yes, they can, but we have to be able to do this. So being transparent, being honest, it can be scary. I know it can, but I was a teacher that did this. I was honest. I told parents where they were at. Guess what? Never once did I get fired. And I actually never once got yelled at by a parent. Not saying it can't happen. Maybe I'm just lucky, but didn't get yelled at. So they were just grateful that they knew what was going on and that they could be proactive in that. So if you are a teacher that's scared, please don't be scared. The next thing that they say is that few parents will actually seek tutoring, summer school, or community help if they don't know where the problem is. Like I said, be proactive. And no teacher can get 70% of a class up to grade level without broad level support, including public acknowledgement, and that there is a problem which the teachers did not create, but they are meant to solve. Like I said, it's almost an impossible task. Okay. You have so many kids, so many different levels. You have little amount of time. You don't get to work with them one-on-one. You are working in whole group, small group, and that's about all they're getting. And then if you do have a child that's not showing growth, you're trying to get them qualified for SPED. Oftentimes that can take up to an entire school year to get them qualified. So just be honest with the parents so that they can be proactive. And I think a lot of this will kind of solve some of these problems. And if you can provide support to the parents and say, here's what you can be doing, I think that's super helpful too. Like, don't just come to them with the problem, give them a solution as well and give them other options because they may want to look into a tutor. So one thing to keep in mind that they did go into is they were kind of talking about COVID and how COVID did kind of create some sort of gap in the amount of math, reading, and history that they've learned over the last 3 years, which has exacerbated the pre-existing achievement gaps. It does say by 2022, the typical student in the poorest districts across the country had lost 3/4 of a year in math, more than double the decline of students in the richest district. So it is common for the lower income students to be further behind. I think a lot of that does have to do with the lack of time that parents have to really work on skills with the kids, as well as the lack of ability to get extra resources for their children, things like that. But we're kind of catching up, but we're still not making the progress that we need to make after COVID. Catching up could require more time in classrooms or with tutors, which is unlikely to happen if parents don't know where their child is at. And that is the problem. Parents, have you ever wondered what your kids are really learning about important topics like taxes, freedom, and responsibility? As an educator, I once had to teach a social studies lesson that only focused on the positives of taxes, completely ignoring the downsides of overt taxation or the importance of personal responsibility. It made me realize how limited the perspective is in many traditional curricula. That's why I'm so passionate about the Tuttle Twins books. These books teach kids both sides of important issues like economics, freedom, and entrepreneurship in a way that's fun, engaging, and easy to understand. They help children think critically and understand the world in a more balanced way. If you're ready to check it out, use my link down below to explore their incredible resources, give your kids the tools to think for themselves, and support my podcast. I kind of talked about this a little bit about report cards and the problems with report cards, but parents consistently say on surveys that the number one indicator that they use to understand their child's academic progress is report cards and grades. But if you ask teachers, you get a very different answer. When told to select the 4 most helpful sources of information that let you know whether a student is performing at grade level, report cards come near the bottom of the list. Teachers are not using report cards to determine whether or not your child is performing academically. And as a teacher, I can tell you, I rarely ever use the report cards that I was forced to send home to parents every quarter. I didn't use those to know where my students were at. Not in the slightest. I was obviously required to send these home. In my first couple of years of teaching, I obviously was a new teacher, didn't know much about what I was doing, how I was doing things. And so I just sent these home because I was like, well, this is how I'm supposed to tell parents about how their child is doing, even though I was using other information to actually determine how their children were doing. It wasn't until I went to another district and was working with another amazing team teacher that I learned so much from. She and I had decided like our report card does not show our parents what these kids actually need to be able to do. And so we actually created our own little thing. I was teaching first grade at the time. So our own we were like, okay, these are the main skills that the children need. We were using structured literacy at this point in time. So I'm just going to kind of talk about literacy here. We also had like mathematics, but we basically used our standards and we said, okay, this is what the district, what the district wants the kids to be able to do. This is what the standards want the kids to be able to do. And we basically just created our own report card that was based just strictly on skills. This is what we would send home to parents so that they could track their progress. This is what we would send home to parents after parent-teacher conferences. And that's how we made all of our parent-teacher conferences, was using this document that we would send home with growth throughout the year. That's what we sent home with report cards. So we weren't just sending home these other, just a report card, because to us, the report card meant absolutely nothing. So basically what we did is we took all of the data that we were gathering, which is going to be on our assessments that we were doing. We were obviously tracking all of this data, and we were like, well, why not tell parents about all of this data, right? This is what they need to be able to do, and this is what we know they can or cannot do right now. Why not give that information to them? Because the standards are really hard for parents to understand, for one, and for two, like the way that you do the grades, I hated report cards so much. Let's just give them our own report card. It takes extra time. And I know that sucks so bad, but once you have once you have a system down, like if you're an educator and you have this like set, okay, this is the skills and this is, the progress that they're making throughout the year. And you have multiple slots that you can just essentially fill in. Like, okay, this is what they need to be able to do by the beginning of the year. This is what they need to be able to do by the middle of the year. And this is what they need to do by the end of the year. And these are the sequence in which it needs to happen and the sequence of the skills that needs to happen. And you basically just create assessments that kind of go along with this. So one, you're creating assessments that you're going to be doing anyway to track their progress, right? And two, you have this breakdown for parents so that they can actually understand what the heck their kid can or cannot do. And that way you have this document that's just a living document that you continually fill in, throughout the year. And so it makes parent-teacher conferences super easy because you've already filled it out, because you've already gotten the data, you've already done all the things. And now you just present it to parents and say, here you go. Here's how your kid's doing. Okay. So another misconception that they were talking about was how much work their children were getting done. The Bergman and his colleagues surveyed parents in West Virginia schools about how much work parents thought that their children had missed in school, and more than 50% said none, but only 20% of kids were getting all their work done, meaning a lot of parents were mistaken about that work. So again, this is just the teacher not communicating with the parents. Sorry, teachers. I hate to throw you under the bus. I have had parents where I am sending newsletters. I am sending emails. I am on my class dojo. I'm sending all of this information. And then I have a parent that's like, hey, what about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, it was in my newsletter. It was in my email. It was on my class dojo. Like, I had so many different ways that I messaged you or sent you this information. And why do you not have this information? So it's not just on teachers, parents. You also have to be on your game as well. However, there is just a lot of miscommunication. So the more that we can communicate, the better. Miscommunications, I think, are harming these kids. What the heck should you do if you are a parent and you're listening to this and you're thinking, holy crap, I might not know whether or not my child is on grade level. This is what they suggest, and I'm going to go into what I suggest as well. But they were saying that they had Learning Heroes launched a multi-city campaign called Go Beyond Grades to encourage parents to ask where their children are and help them find the resources they need. The organization suggests that parents do 3 things and provide scripts and resources to do each one. So number 1 is ask the teacher if your child is on grade level. Number 2, be in the know about what is expected for grade level. So the organization explains how. And number 3, connect to programs that can help get your child the support they need, be it tutoring or after school help. So like I had said, number 1, they just say, ask. Is my child on grade level? If they tell you no, they'll know. They'll say, yep, your child's on grade level in reading, or nope, they are not on grade level in reading or math or whatever, right? So they'll be able to tell you. But also being in the know about what is expected for the grade level. And this is why my team teacher and I decided it was time for us to create something so that parents knew what was expected. What skills did these children actually need to be able to do in the beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, and the sequence of skills and where they're at on each of these skills, right? They needed to know vowel teams. They needed to know digraphs. They needed to know how to read blends, and they needed to know how to read multisyllabic words, and they needed to know about consonant LE. There were so many things that they needed to know to be able to read the 45 words in this first grade passage in 1 minute and be able to retell. And so obviously our comprehension focused a lot on retell and key details and what that is and main idea and all of these things, right? So if you are like, okay, this is what they have to be able to do, here are the skills leading up to it, and you can just have assessments that assess those things, and then provide parents with, hey, at the beginning of the year, you say, these are the skills that I'm going to be teaching your child so that at the end of the year, they can do this. I think this one is actually a little bit more on the teachers. Obviously, I think it's important as the parent that you know exactly what is expected of them, and you would need to ask that teacher that. And if they are even a little bit vague and you still are not 100% sure, try to dig deeper with them. And most teachers know. They know exactly what it is that they need to be able to do by the end of the year. They know what skills they're going to be teaching. So it's just them having to lay it out for you on what that looks like, what that's going to entail. If your child does need help, right? Like if your child needs help and the school cannot provide that help, it's important to look for outside help or see if they have any sort of programs that you could get your child in at school. The further they fall behind, the harder it's going to be to catch them up. There was actually a study done looking at fourth graders that were struggling in reading, and it is a lot harder to get a fourth grader caught up to where they need to be than if we would have just started interventions early on when we saw that they were struggling. So even if your teacher's like, yeah, they're on grade level, but like barely hanging on by a thread, like they're just barely on grade level, I would do some extra work with them, because a lot of those kids that are barely on grade level end up kind of falling behind, especially over the summer. That's when you see those kids drastically fall behind in what they could do at the end of the year because they were just barely hanging on, right? So our philosophy was, the child's barely hanging on, we need to get some extra supports. We need to do something because they shouldn't be barely hanging on. And we know those are the kids that are going to fall behind. So even if they're like, yeah, they're on grade level, but just barely, I would get some extra support. And just so that you guys are aware, I am a reading tutor. So if you do find out that your child is struggling, or you just think, you know what, I want to get my child ahead or whatever it is, I do have tutoring services that I do provide, and you can actually get the first consultation for free. And what that looks like is really talking to you about, one, what are your goals for your child? And then I also am really stuck on setting the foundations for your child. So we'll kind of look at where your child is at with these literacy skills. I don't do it based on age. I just do it based on skills. Whether your child's a fourth grader and they need the foundations, or you have a first grader and they also need different foundations or whatever it is that they need, I'm always looking at skill. It does not matter to me what their age is. They need these foundations so that they can become good readers and writers. So that's kind of how I base my tutoring. If you are interested in that and looking for tutoring services, I will put the link down below. Contact me and we can get started on that. In the very end of this article, he does kind of say that we need to give each other grace. And it's not that the parents do not want to help, and it's not that they don't know what to do. It's the same for teachers. It's more that they don't really know how to do family engagement. In the end, it's going to help the child, right? And that's why we go into teaching. We go into teaching because we want to help the future generation be successful. That's why. So I think that we need to be more transparent with parents, and we need to make sure that we are doing our very best as educators, using the most effective strategies. And then parents, also reach out to your teachers. I know, in talking to some parents, they're like, I honestly don't want to reach out to the teacher because I kind of feel like I'm being annoying, or I feel like it's your kid. Reach out. Okay. Reach out to that teacher. You just want to be on the ball. And I'm going to be honest, I'd much rather have a parent that's on the ball than a parent that doesn't care at all. You're not annoying. Teachers are like, oh, I'm so glad this parent cares. So both sides, like I said, two-way road. I do think we need to give each other grace, but also we need to be proactive because we have a problem. But I hope that this podcast was helpful if you're a parent, so that you know what to do and what to ask and how to go about this. And if you're an educator, I hope that I gave you some courage if you are a teacher that's scared to be transparent with parents, and that you go out there and you're transparent, and that we can work together to make sure that these kids succeed. And we will see you next time.